I pushed open the glass door and stepped inside, just wanting to take a look. I wasn't dressed up, just jeans, sneakers, and my favorite hoodie. It was a chill day, and I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I just wanted to see if I could find something special for my sister's birthday. She's always dreamed of owning a luxury car, and after everything she's been through this past year, I thought, why not surprise her? The moment I walked in, everything got quiet for a second. You know when people don't say anything, but their eyes say everything? That happened. A couple of the staff looked up, gave me a once-over, and then looked away like I wasn't worth their time. A woman standing near the coffee bar stared at my shoes, then whispered something to the guy next to her. I ignored it. I wasn't there for them. I walked farther into the showroom, past the shiny cars and that clean new car smell, and finally caught the eye of one of the salesmen. He was in a fitted blue suit, shiny shoes, and slicked back hair. He looked me up and down like I'd tracked mud in with me. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, smiling the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Yeah," I said. "I'm looking at possibly buying something for my sister's birthday. I saw that coupe in the corner. It's beautiful. I'd love to hear more about it." His eyebrows went up just a little. Then he let out this short laugh, like he couldn't help himself. "You sure you're in the right place?" he said. "Those models start around $300,000. Our used section is down the road if you're interested in something more affordable." I stood there, not sure what to say for a second. The way he said affordable, the way his voice dipped just enough. It wasn't helpful. It was meant to put me in my place. I kept my face straight. "I'm specifically interested in that one," I said again, nodding toward the car. He shook his head lightly, chuckled, and said, "Look, I don't mean to waste your time, or mine, but that car isn't just for looking, it's for buying. Most of our serious clients come in with appointments and bank letters." I nodded slowly. Right, I could have said more. I could have told him I had the money. I could have pulled out a black card and asked him if that was proof enough. But I didn't. I just turned around and walked out. As I stepped back outside, I felt the burn in my chest. Not from the cold air, but from the way he made me feel. Like I didn't belong, like I wasn't enough. I didn't say a word. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. They had no idea who they were talking to. I've been here before. Not this exact place, but this exact feeling. That moment when someone looks at you and makes up their mind about who you are before you even open your mouth. It's a quiet kind of cut, one that doesn't bleed on the outside, but stings just the same. They saw my hoodie, my skin, my natural hair pulled into a loose puff, and that was all they needed. They didn't see the woman who's built something real. They didn't see the nights I stayed up past midnight, answering emails for my nonprofit. They didn't see the dozens of young girls I've mentored, the families I've helped, the projects I've funded with my own money. They didn't see the woman who made it out of nothing and didn't lose herself along the way. I've never been one for flashy things. My joy has never come from labels or logos. I like comfort, I like peace, and I like being able to walk around without constantly feeling like I need to prove something. I dress simple because that's how I feel most myself. That day, standing in that showroom, I was reminded of how little that means to other people. How fast they decide what you're worth based on what you're wearing, how you speak, how you carry yourself. It's exhausting to be reminded again and again that for some folks, you'll never be enough until you show a receipt, until you flash a name tag or a business card or a gold watch. I don't want to live like that. I never have. I don't need to be loud to be important. I don't need to wear my money on my sleeve to deserve kindness. And yet, even with everything I've learned, even with all the strength I've built over the years, it still hits me sometimes. That quiet sting, that silent message, you don't belong here. It's not about the car, it's not even about the money, it's about being seen, really seen. And not just when I'm dressed in something that makes people feel comfortable. I want to be seen when I'm in my everyday self, the version of me that shows up to volunteer events, or takes her niece to dance class, or runs errands on a Saturday morning. I wasn't angry, not right away. I was tired, tired of the pattern, tired of shrinking myself, or explaining myself, or proving myself to people who never deserved the explanation. Some days I carry it better than others. That day it weighed a little heavier, But one thing I've learned, just because someone else can't see your value doesn't mean it's not there. And just because they missed it doesn't mean you owe them anything. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, the same table where we've shared 1,000 ordinary conversations. But this one wasn't ordinary. I started talking, slowly at first, then all at once. Every detail. The way the salesman looked at me, the tone in his voice, the way he dismissed me without even trying to listen. I told him how I had felt, like I was invisible, like I didn't matter, like I didn't belong in that room filled with polished glass, shiny cars, and people too proud to look past a hoodie. He didn't interrupt me, not even once. He sat there with his hands folded, listening with that steady focus that's always made me feel safe. He let me finish, then he took a breath, looked at me, and asked, "Do you want me to handle this?" For a moment I didn't answer, not because I didn't know how I felt, but because I knew exactly how I felt. I didn't want to create a scene. I didn't want to fight. I didn't need to make anyone feel small. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted something deeper. I wanted them to realize they were wrong. I wanted them to feel that discomfort, that reflection. I wanted them to see how easily they dismissed someone they knew nothing about, someone who could have changed their entire day, their entire month, their business, someone who didn't come in to beg but to give. I shook my head. "I don't want revenge," I said quietly, "but I want them to remember me. Not because I yelled, not because I showed them a black card, but because they realized they judged me too quickly. And maybe next time they'll think twice before doing it again." He nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Then let's show them," he said. "Let's show them who you really are," without saying a single word. That's who he is. Calm, thoughtful, and always a step ahead. Jordan doesn't talk much, but when he does, people listen. He's the kind of man who doesn't have to raise his voice to make a room go silent. He knows who he is, and more importantly, he knows who I am. And in moments like this, that's everything. I didn't want anyone to be embarrassed. I didn't want a public apology or to prove a point just for the sake of it. What I wanted was to open a door. I wanted them to learn something they clearly hadn't yet. That value doesn't wear designer. That power doesn't always shout. That sometimes the quietest presence in the room is the one they should be paying the most attention to. We didn't need to argue, like we just needed to let the truth speak for itself. Jordan doesn't rush into things. He thinks through every step, every outcome. After our conversation, he sat quietly for a while, the way he does when something's forming in his mind. I knew better than to push. When he finally looked at me again, there was something settled in his eyes, something steady, not angry, but certain. "I think it's time they see a different side of the story," he said. "Not in a loud way, not to punish, just to show them who they overlooked." He wasn't talking about confrontation. He wasn't planning a speech or a scene. That's not his way. He believes the most powerful statement you can make is to move in silence and let presence speak louder than words ever could. So he laid out the plan in a few simple lines, clean, respectful, intentional. "I'll go tomorrow. I'll ask about the same car you asked about. I won't mention your name until the right moment. I'll let them show their hand first." He didn't have to say the rest, I understood. He wasn't going to flex or throw money around. That's not what this was about. The Rolls Royce he planned to take wasn't covered in diamonds or dipped in gold. It was understated elegance, deep black, custom interior, extended wheelbase. It moved like a whisper, but if you knew, you knew. It wasn't a car that screamed for attention. It was the kind of car that turned heads without trying, just like Jordan. "I'm not going there as your husband," he said, locking eyes with me. "I'm going as a man who respects his wife." That line stayed with me. It wasn't about defending me like I was fragile. It was about standing beside me because I mattered, because my dignity deserved to be seen, because no woman should have to prove her worth just to be treated like a human being. He didn't talk about teaching anyone a lesson. He talked about opening eyes. He didn't speak from ego. He spoke from principle. This wasn't about us being wealthy or successful. It was about something much simpler, much deeper, human decency, the kind that doesn't change based on what someone's wearing or what skin they're in. He made a few quiet calls, nothing dramatic, nothing showy, just setting up his visit. He didn't post anything online, he didn't call in any favors, he just got ready in his usual way, calm and unshaken. I watched him from across the room, already knowing tomorrow was going to shift something. Not because of a fight, not because of a confrontation, but because when people are faced with truth, face to face, with no warning, no defense, they have no choice but to see themselves clearly. And sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. He pulled up right in front of the dealership. No hesitation, no second guessing, just smooth, effortless confidence. The deep black Rolls Royce came to a silent stop, the kind of entrance that doesn't ask for attention, but gets it anyway. The moment the engine turned off, heads turned inside. People stood up from their desks. Someone near the window tapped a coworker's arm and pointed. The doors to the dealership opened before he even reached for the handle. One of the salesmen rushed out like he was late to an appointment. It was the same man, the one who had looked at me like I was wasting his time. Now his whole face had changed. He was all smiles, polite gestures, and quick steps. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to our dealership," he said, practically bowing. Jordan stepped out, calm and cool. His suit was tailored to perfection, shoes polished but not flashy, watch barely visible under his cuff. He nodded politely, saying only, "I'm here to take a look at one of your newer models." "Absolutely, sir. We'd be honored," the man said. "Is there a particular model you're interested in?" Jordan glanced around the showroom slowly, then pointed. "That one, the coupe in midnight gray." "Excellent choice, sir. Limited edition, only a handful made. We're lucky to have it in stock." The salesman was talking fast now, like he didn't want to waste a second. "Would you like to see the interior? We can bring the specs, the full details, everything." Jordan nodded once. "Yes, I'd like to know what makes it special." "Of course, sir. Let me get someone to bring the keys right away." The man turned and almost jogged inside. A second later, another employee walked out with a tray, water, sparkling and still, and 2 types of coffee. "While you wait, sir, please feel free to relax. We have a private lounge if you'd prefer more privacy." Jordan declined the lounge with a shake of his head, but accepted a bottle of water. He said nothing else for a moment, just looked at the car quietly. The staff hovered close, but didn't speak unless he addressed them. They were watching him closely, trying to anticipate what he might want before he asked. Inside, a few more employees gathered near the window, whispering and staring. They didn't know who he was yet, but they could sense it. Power has a way of filling a room, even when it's silent. The salesman returned with the keys, breathless and eager. "Here we are, sir. Let me open it for you." Jordan nodded, walking slowly toward the car as the door swung open with a soft click. Everything was unfolding exactly the way they didn't expect just 24 hours ago, and none of them knew what was coming next. He stood beside the car, letting his eyes run over the sleek lines like he was picturing someone else behind the wheel. The salesman waited silently, watching him, still smiling, still playing the part. Jordan didn't look at him right away. He took his time sipping the water they'd offered, like he had all day. Then, without raising his voice or changing his tone, he said, "My wife came here yesterday. She asked about this same car." The salesman's expression didn't shift right away. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe he didn't want to. "Your wife?" he asked carefully. "Yes," Jordan said, looking straight at him now. "She walked in here in jeans and a black hoodie. Natural hair, no makeup, same car, same interest." There was a pause, just a beat. Then the smile on the salesman's face faltered, just slightly but enough. He didn't answer. From across the showroom, the manager noticed the change in energy and started walking over. His steps were quick, his expression already curious. Jordan kept his eyes on the salesman. "She told me how she was treated, how she was spoken to. You didn't see her, not really. You saw her clothes, you saw her skin, and you decided she couldn't afford to be here." The salesman opened his mouth, then closed it again. His hands shifted at his sides, searching for something to do. He glanced toward the manager who had just joined them. "Is everything all right here?" the manager asked, directing the question to Jordan. Jordan didn't look away. "I was just reminding your employee about the woman he turned away yesterday. She walked into your dealership hoping to buy a gift for her sister. She left humiliated. The manager's eyebrows pulled together. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not aware of any situation like that. Jordan finally turned to him. That's part of the problem. You don't know what happens in your own showroom. You didn't see her walk in. You didn't hear your salesman tell her to go down the road and try her luck with used cars. The salesman took a half step forward, voice low. Sir, I didn't mean any disrespect. I just wasn't sure. You were sure, Jordan interrupted, voice calm but firm. You were sure she didn't belong. You were sure she wasn't worth your time. And now, because I walked in wearing a suit and stepped out of a Rolls Royce, suddenly I am. Silence followed. The manager cleared his throat. I assure you, this isn't how we operate. Yea, it is exactly how you operate, Jordan said. You just don't see it until now. No one else spoke. Even the air felt heavy. Jordan let that silence stretch, then said, She came here in good faith. She was ready to make a purchase. All she got in return was judgment. And with that, they understood who they'd overlooked and what it had cost them. You thought she didn't belong here, he said, steady and calm. But the truth is, she could have bought 3 of these cars, paid in full, no loans, no questions. The salesman opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. He just stood there blinking, like he wasn't sure if he'd heard right. Around them, a couple of customers had started paying attention. A man by the window shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen. A woman near the entrance slowed her walk, eyes drifting in their direction. Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words carried just fine without force. He looked at the manager now. This isn't about just one person. This is about how you treat people who don't look rich. How many others have you turned away because they didn't fit your image of a real buyer? The manager looked flustered, fingers tapping lightly against his thigh. We deal with a lot of walk-ins, sir. We try to qualify interest. Qualify, Jordan repeated, letting the word hang in the air. And what was it that disqualified her? Her hoodie, her hair, her skin? The manager said nothing. A young man nearby shifted from foot to foot. He wore a suit that looked a size too big and had a nervous look on his face. Jordan glanced at him. You saw her yesterday, didn't you? The young man nodded slowly. I did. Jordan waited. She was polite, the trainee said, voice soft. She asked about the coupe. He told her to try the used lot. The salesman's face flushed red. He took a step back, hands behind his back now. Thank you, Jordan said to the trainee, then looked back at the others. She didn't come in here to be treated like royalty. She came in to make a purchase. She was serious and she was respectful. But none of that mattered because you made up your minds before she even opened her mouth. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He held it up, didn't open it, just tapped it lightly against his palm. Inside this envelope is a check large enough to cover not just this car, but the full price of another one just like it. That's what you missed yesterday. No one moved. No one spoke. But you know what? That check isn't for you, he said, tucking it away again. Because money doesn't fix everything. Sometimes the best payment is the lesson you learn when you realize what you lost. He stepped back from the car, eyes still steady. She didn't need your approval. She didn't need your validation. She walked away with her pride intact. Can you say the same? The room stayed silent, but the message had already landed. The young salesman shifted on his feet, then took a breath and stepped forward. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. I saw her yesterday, he said, glancing between the manager and Jordan. She came in asking about the coupe. She wasn't loud, she wasn't rude, she just asked. The room stayed quiet. All eyes were on him now. The older salesman looked like he wanted to say something, maybe stop him, but didn't. She was polite, the young man continued. She asked for help. She pointed to the car, same one you're standing by now, but no one gave her a chance. He nodded toward the older salesman, told her to go down the street, said this place wasn't for her. The manager's face tightened. His jaw moved like he was chewing on words, but nothing came out. Jordan gave a small nod to the younger man, steady and thoughtful. Thank you, he said, for saying that. I know it's not easy. The young man looked down, then back up again. It didn't sit right with me, but I didn't know if it was my place to speak. It's always your place to speak, Jordan replied, especially when you see something wrong. That's how you make it right. Jordan turned to the manager, his tone calm but firm. You've got work to do here. You need to teach your team better, not just how to sell cars, but how to treat people with decency. The manager swallowed hard. You're right, I take full responsibility. Jordan raised a hand slightly. This isn't about me, and it's not just about my wife. It's about everyone you've turned away without even realizing it. Everyone who walked in hoping for respect and left feeling less than. No one interrupted, no one moved. We run a charity, Jordan said. My wife and I. Every month, we host events to support kids who've been through more than most adults ever will. Next month, we're hosting a gala to raise funds for adaptive equipment. It's important, life-changing. The manager nodded slowly. That sounds incredible. I want your staff to help, Jordan said, not as guests, as volunteers. There was a pause, some eyebrows raised, the salesman shifted, the manager blinked. Set up, greet families, carry chairs, pass out water, assist the kids, Jordan continued. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And I think a little time seeing what strength really looks like might shift the way people here think. The manager hesitated, then said, We'll do it. Jordan nodded once. Good. Sometimes the best way to fix a mindset is to change what someone sees. If they spend a day with those kids, they'll stop looking at shoes and start looking at souls. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy with understanding. The tables were set, the chairs lined up, and soft music played in the background. The air felt lighter than usual, filled with laughter and the excited chatter of kids waiting for their turn in the activity area. They arrived just after noon, dressed in volunteer shirts, not suits. No watches to flash, no polished shoes to impress, just name tags, simple clothes, and uncertainty in their steps. They didn't know what to expect. Some of them looked around nervously, eyes scanning the crowd of children in wheelchairs, braces, walkers, and bright-colored outfits. The manager stood near the back at first, hands in his pockets, silent. The salesman who had dismissed me kept close to him, a step behind. But slowly the event pulled them in. A little boy in a red hoodie, rolled up in his wheelchair, pointed to the water station, and asked for help. The older salesman bent down, poured him a cup, and handed it over with a smile that didn't feel forced. That same little boy asked if he'd stay and watch him shoot baskets. He did. The manager was helping near the craft table, picking up fallen crayons, holding glue bottles steady for small hands. One girl with leg braces dropped her crutches, and without hesitation, he bent down to adjust them. She looked up at him, smiled, and said, "Thanks, mister." He smiled back and nodded like it was the most important thing he'd done all year. Later, he helped carry trays of food to the parents, who sat on the sidelines, holding babies or wiping the faces of excited kids. I passed by him once and our eyes met. He didn't say anything, he just nodded, quiet and sincere. That was enough. The young trainee was everywhere, running, laughing, holding kids steady as they tried new games. His face lit up when one little girl with arm crutches made a full circle on the mini obstacle course. "You did it," he said, clapping like she'd just won a gold medal. Her parents watched from a distance, tears in their eyes. He didn't see that. He was too busy high-fiving the next kid in line. By the time the sun dipped low, something had shifted. The sales staff, who once stood behind glass walls, deciding who was worth their time, were now kneeling in the grass, tying shoes, listening to stories about hospital visits and victories most people wouldn't even notice. No one brought up the dealership, no one mentioned the car, there were no speeches, no apologies. But the way they moved, the way they listened, it said everything. They had come to help, but they were the ones being changed. I didn't need them to say sorry. Watching them see what really matters, that was enough. I stood near the edge of the garden, fingers wrapped around a warm paper cup of tea, watching families move from table to table, kids laughing, parents smiling, volunteers listening without checking the time. I wasn't wearing anything fancy, just my usual jeans and a soft gray cardigan. No heels, no earrings, no labels. My hair was in its natural curls, pulled back with a simple clip, the way I always wear it when I want to feel most like myself. A little girl tugged at the hand of one of the salesmen, asking if he could help her cut out a star from her glitter paper. He sat down right next to her, rolled up his sleeves, and carefully followed her instructions. His tie was gone. His eyes were softer than they'd been the day before. Another volunteer helped the boy adjust his leg brace, asking him if he was ready to try walking to the table on his own. The boy grinned, determined. Everyone around him clapped when he made it. I stayed still, just taking it in. No need to walk around, no need to call attention to anything. This wasn't about proving anything. This was about watching something real unfold. Growth, humility, connection. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need anyone to come over and explain themselves. They were doing the explaining already, with their actions, their posture, their presence. Jordan walked up beside me, quiet as always. Didn't speak right away. He looked out at the crowd, just like I was, hands in his pockets. When he finally turned to me, he smiled and said, "They see you now." I smiled back, soft but sure. "I never needed them to," I said. "I just wanted them to see people better." He nodded, pressing a kiss against my temple. "They will now." All around us, people who once sold cars were now folding blankets for kids, carrying juice boxes, cheering from the grass. And none of it looked forced. It looked like people remembering what kindness feels like, what humanity looks like, what respect actually means. I sipped my tea again, feeling the warmth reach deeper than just my hands. This wasn't about being fancy. It never was. This was about standing in your truth so fully that others have no choice but to stop and recognize it. No shouting, no showing off, just standing firm. Sometimes change doesn't come with noise. Sometimes it comes when people are faced with a version of reality they hadn't been brave enough to see before. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. I stood there as the sun started to dip low, shadows stretching across the grass. No applause, no spotlight, just peace. Quiet, complete, undeniable peace. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the world tilted a little closer to right.